I don't know about you, but I get super annoyed when people tell me to find my passion because I think this is just crap advice, personally. I'm Karen Dudek-Brannan, and I help pediatric therapists be better leaders so that they can make a bigger impact with their services. And I wanted to just dive into this topic a little bit because a lot of therapists, whether it be, I'm a speech pathologist, but I think this happens with a lot of other disciplines as well: social work, psychology, OT, PT, even people who work in special ed as well. Anybody who really works with K-12 kids, I think that there's a lot of people who feel very disempowered in their work, and they're really aware of a lot of the obstacles that they're facing in their job. And as a result of that, some of them start to either feel like the system is totally broken, or some of them question whether they're in the right field, whether they need to make a career transition, and things like that. And so, a lot of the professional development out there for educators and therapists is very focused on tactical things. So, if you're in more of a school situation, it's teaching techniques, and again, if it's more of a therapy type situation, it's clinical skills. And so there's a lot of information about that, but there isn't as much information about career development. So a lot of people, when they're feeling dissatisfied with their careers, they go to these adjacent fields that aren't exactly related to therapy. Maybe they go and they do professional development in kind of the life coaching area where they're getting support from a life coach or something like that. I'm definitely not ripping on all life coaches, but just giving that as an example. And then a lot of these other professional developments are very self-help guru-ish. And there's all this talk about being aligned and following your dreams and blah, blah, blah. And while some of that is helpful, a lot of it is very fluffy and unrealistic. And I don't think it's helpful because if you're a therapist, you know that there are real issues in your job. And the thing is that when you're considering a career transition, it's not super helpful to have this unrealistic expectation about what's on the other side of the fence, because there's always this idea that the grass is greener on the other side. One thing that I see happening a lot in the field of speech pathology is that people will, they're working for somebody else and then they want to go start a private practice. And for some people, that's a great option. That's a good choice. But for other people, they don't realize that you have challenges in a situation where you're employed. You go to another situation, you're going to have a different set of challenges. So I don't think that saying follow your passion is the most helpful advice. I have a more pragmatic way of looking at it. And while it sounds a bit negative on the surface, I think that it actually ultimately sets you up to be more optimistic and successful in the long run. And that is the concept of the shit sandwich. So I personally heard this from Elizabeth Gilbert and Mark Manson, so two of my favorite authors, but they talk about the concept of the shit sandwich. And as Mark Manson puts it, everything sucks some of the time. As Elizabeth Gilbert puts it, it's not a matter of avoiding shit sandwiches in your life. It's simply a matter of finding something that matters enough to you that you are willing to deal with the shit sandwich that goes with it. Because regardless of what situation you put yourself in, there's going to be one. There's always going to be problems. For example, for me, I did choose the self-employment route as a speech pathologist. So right now I do online training for therapists. And it's different than when I was in the schools. The shit sandwiches that I was dealing with when I was in the school situation was I had certain demands placed on me and certain requirements placed on me about how I could serve my students. I had to follow the school schedule, which I know everybody's like, woo, it's so great, you have summers off. But anybody who works in the school settings knows that it is, yeah, you get your summers off and you get your breaks, but the times that you're not on your breaks, you have very little flexibility. My husband, who has a corporate job, actually has way more flexibility in his job, working 12 months of the year than I ever did working for the school systems. And he'll definitely admit that as well. So, there were definitely, as I said, many problems, many shit sandwiches I had to deal with working for the schools. So when I went to a self-employed situation, I got rid of some of those, but got some new ones. Like, I don't have any structure imposed on me in my schedule. I am 100% responsible for managing my schedule and myself and staying disciplined the whole day, which can get very exhausting. And then I'm also, you have the financial aspects of being self-employed. Taxes are different. You have to pay quarterly taxes. You have to figure out your own insurance. You have to figure out your own retirement. It's kind of like when you move out of your parents' house and you have all this freedom, but then you have all these responsibilities as well. So I got a new plate full of shit sandwiches when I moved over to self-employment. Now, they were the shit sandwiches that I ordered. They were the things that I was willing to deal with because what I do is very important to me and I love doing it. But I am not going to sugarcoat it and say that it's all sunshine and roses all the time, because it's just not. Now, I think that as I've said before, I think this whole framework of figuring out what problems am I willing to deal with, what thing do I care enough about that I am willing to deal with the problems that go with it, is a more empowering question to ask yourself rather than what's my passion? Because if you go into something delusionally optimistic with this idea that there are no problems, that when you see the first sign of struggle, it kind of messes with your head and it makes you think that there's something wrong when really it's just something that you need to work through. And so if you set yourself up to expect those things and you just kind of think about what things might come up, then you can be better prepared and better equipped for them when they come up, because then you think, oh, this is normal. This is part of the process. This is something that I need to work through. And here's how I'm going to do it. And you can keep moving on rather than thinking, overthinking and, not seeing this as something that is a roadblock rather than just a simple detour or an obstacle that you can work through. So that's why I think that actually sets people up to be more resilient in whatever career path they choose. And I think that it can also help people to find just peace with their situation, because I don't think it's realistic or helpful to have the idea that you're going to create a problem-free situation. And I think that this can also give people peace in kind of reevaluating their current situation, because maybe, for some people, it might make sense to make some kind of a career transition, or maybe they can just simply change the way they look at the current situation and feel more empowered in the situation that they're currently in. There are a lot of things that you can do. There were a lot of things that I did before I even left the schools, while I was still in that position, while it was still the right choice for me, where I changed the way that I was doing things. And again, I kind of looked at the different challenges and problems that I was facing and got a little bit more creative in how I addressed them. But also at the same time, I didn't try to go in it with this mindset that I had to fix everything at once, because that's just kind of overwhelming. And I think it also just kind of sets you up for this negative narrative of again, if you think the system is broken and not fixable, then you're not going to even take any small steps to do anything about it. And so I think that it is kind of disheartening to me when people are like, the system is broken, blah, 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 everything is bad. That's not helpful. But at the same time, it's not good to be on the other end where it's like, find your perfect aligned dream, passion, blah, 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 or whatever people say. So don't find your passion. Find your, pick the shit sandwich that you're most willing to deal with, and find the situation that you care enough about that you're willing to deal with the shit sandwiches that go along with it. I think that that's really how you find true career alignment.